I have been addicted to Claude Code the past couple of months. I live and breathe in this terminal. There's a reason why I've been covering it and context engineering so much on my channel recently. The things we can do with these tools and frameworks now is insane. I feel like I can build anything. But as much as I've been talking about it on my channel recently, I haven't actually covered a start to finish. Let's dive into all the features of Claude Code and how we can make the most out of this beautiful coding assistant. So that is what I'm going to cover with you right now. We're going to talk about best practices, strategies, and tips for global rules and commands and agentic workflows and hooks and subagents and parallel agents. I'm going to dive into it all with you. So even if you've used Claude Code a lot before, you're still going to get a lot out of this. Also, I know that Claude Code is not perfect. Anthropic's new rate limits, outages, the cost, and so as we go through these strategies, I'll also talk about how they apply to other AI coding assistants as well. We're definitely not limited to Claude Code, but it is the best of the best by far. And so yeah, just a value-packed guide for you today. Let's go ahead and dive right into what I've got for you. So all of the tips and strategies that I've got for you today, I'm going to have in this README, which I'm going to be adding into the context engineering GitHub repo that I've been building up recently. So I'll have a link to this in the description so you can follow along with me, implement all of these strategies as we go through them together. And so context engineering and the PRP framework, my big things recently. I'm going to cover that in this guide, but also some other things that I've never covered on my channel before that are really important for making the most out of Claude Code. And so just to give you an overview of all the strategies we're going through today, I want to start with global rules with the claude.md files and best practices for using those, then dive into permission management. We'll go into custom slash commands so we can set up these agentic workflows that we can run with a single command. Then we'll get into MCP servers, and I've got a couple of big recommendations for this. Also a huge teaser for the overhaul for Archon, Archon version 2, which is going to be released next week. We got a beta launch for that. More on that in the middle of this video, so stay tuned for that. Then we'll get into context engineering with the PRP framework. I'll just give you a quick overview of this and how you can get started in a 3-step process to have this full framework for context engineering that gives your AI coding assistants everything they need to build production-ready software for you. Then we'll get into leveraging subagents, one of the newer features of Claude Code that's super exciting. And then we'll also get into Claude Code hooks, so you can have these automations built into different parts of the development lifecycle as we are using Claude Code. Then after that, we will go into the GitHub CLI integration. It's really amazing just how much Claude Code can integrate directly with GitHub, doing things like managing issues and PRs in our repo and automatically creating PRs based on requests that we have for it. So we'll dive into that here, even with the slash command to automatically fix GitHub issues. So go out to GitHub, find an issue, make a fix for it, create a pull request. We'll see that in action. I'll also dive into what is called Yolo Mode, so we can run Claude with dangerous permissions, but do it in a safe way in containers. And then last but not least, I want to dive into parallel agent development, so we can have multiple instances of Claude Code operating on different parts of our code base, or all attempting to implement the same feature at the exact time, so we have different options to choose from. And that'll wrap it up for everything that I want to cover with you today. So I hope you can see from this that no matter how experienced you are with Claude Code at this point, there are going to be some nuggets in here for you, and maybe even completely revolutionizing the way that you use Claude Code. All right, so I have a completely empty folder open up in my IDE, except for the README that has all of our strategies that I just copied over from the template that I have linked in the description. And even if you have never used or installed Claude Code before, I've got you covered because I have their super simple installation steps at the top of the README here, which for Mac and Linux, it's just a single command. They also added support for Windows recently, but I still have a better experience with the Linux subsystem within Windows. So I've got instructions for that here, just a couple of extra steps, which I actually followed to install it myself. So within my IDE, I do Control J to open up my terminal. I have a Ubuntu WSL1 running, and then I run the Claude command, and there we go. We have our terminal open, and it's so easy to get started with Claude Code. You just have to tell it what you want it to do. Like I have a question about my repository, or I want you to implement XYZ. Just go ahead and get started. If you're new to Claude Code, just throw in some commands, see what it's capable of doing. And then when you want to take Claude Code from being good to great, that's when you want to start implementing all the strategies that I'm going to get down and dirty and cover for you right now. And so we'll start with the first one, which is our global rules, basically the system prompt to steer Claude Code so that we can have it behave the way we want it to. Your claude.md file is like your windsurf rules or your cursor rules if you've used other IDEs before. It's the high-level instructions where you want to put things like your best practices or patterns that you want it to follow. It's basically the system prompt that you get to craft for Claude Code. And there are two ways that we can create it. The first one, the easiest way, is to use the built-in /init command. So going into my terminal here with Claude Code, if I type in /init, this is going to walk me through an initialization process where the creation of the claude.md is a part of it. So Claude Code will walk me through creating the system prompt for itself. But what I like doing even more is creating my own claude.mds, because I like being really meticulous about this instruction set, since it is really like the highest level instructions that we have for our coding assistant. And so as an example that I have for you, if we go back to the repo that I have linked in the description, I have a claude.md prepared for you, which is generally what I use when I build Python-based applications. And so you can use this as a template for Python. And then also within the Dynamous community, we're working on different claude.md templates for different kinds of projects, like building agents or building Next.js apps or Rust applications. We're creating all of these templates. And we're doing it as a part of a community initiative. The Context Engineering Hub is something that we started recently in Dynamous that I'm super pumped about. Basically, we're creating this gold mine of AI coding resources, like global rules like we're just talking about, Claude hooks, and subagents, and different slash commands and PRP templates. Like no matter what you want to build, you can come here, find resources to save you hours setting up that initial context for your AI coding assistant. So definitely check out dynamous.ai if you're interested in this and want to be a part of this. And so I took the Python rules from that resource and I have that available for you just to get started with something here. And so what I can do in the root of my folder here, I can create a new file and just call it claude.md. And then I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste the contents from the template that I have available for you. So this is how easy it is to set up global rules for your coding assistant with claude.md. And so now what you can do is you can go in your terminal here and you can just ask it, what system instructions do you have? And part of what it'll cover here is the claude.md. We didn't even have to read it explicitly because it's just brought in automatically. So here we go. We got things like Kiss and Yagni, which we have covered directly in our claude.md. And also you can have multiple claude.mds at different levels of your repo. And so I'll show you what this looks like right now, just as the example that I have here. You can have a claude.md in your front-end folder, then one in your back-end folder. These aren't read by Claude Code automatically, but there is system prompting under the hood in Claude Code, so it understands, like if I'm operating in the front-end folder and I see a claude.md there, I should look there for front-end specific context. So it's very intelligent about how it works with these. And then another really pro tip that I have to give you here is that a lot of teams are starting to use claude.mds in a very sparing way, as in they don't put a lot of context into the claude.md. Instead, they have their patterns and best practices and other business documents outside of their claude.md. And then they just reference those files in their global rules here. So that way it's a lot easier to share things between your team members. It's easy to switch between AI coding assistants, which is something else that I told you that I would be talking about here. And so yeah, that's a really powerful way to manage your global rules. And then also, I have a note right here, other AI coding assistants, they always have some kind of global rules or steering documents, whether it's Cursor or Kiro or Augment Code, like they all have this notion of global rules. Also, one last thing that relates to global rules is prompting strategies for Claude Code. And man, could I make a full video on this, but a couple of things that I want to call out really quickly is there are keywords with Claude Code, things like important, proactively, ultra think, they're actually built into the model. And so it's important to use these when appropriate. Definitely try some of these out. Like try throwing ultra think into a prompt and just see how much more it'll use tokens to think through a problem. Also, Claude loves to over-engineer and implement old code or keep old code for backwards compatibility. So prompting against things like that, like keywords like production ready that cause it to over-engineer, definitely important to keep in mind. So yeah, there's like a gold mine of information that I have for prompting. I just wanted to throw out a couple of things here to really help you as you're making your global rules and even prompting beyond that. Next up, we have permission management. So by default, Claude is going to ask you for permission before it does any command or edits any code in your code base. And that's good for security purposes, but we also don't don't want to always have to approve it for every single little action that it takes. And so we can set up a set of commands that it can run without asking for our permission. And so there are two ways that we can do that. The first way is that we can use the permissions command in Claude Code. So when I go through this, it'll walk me through an allow list and a deny list, and I can set up all these rules right within the CLI. The thing that I like doing though is I like defining these myself in the settings.local.json file. So this is a special file that lives in our .claude directory, and this .claude directory is where we'll see other things like slash commands and subagents going forward. But within this file, I can allow all of these actions within this JSON. And so within the template that I have for you, I have a settings.local.json with all the commands that I usually like to give it permission to run without my approval. So things like grep and ls, so it can search through our code base, moving directories and making directories, running Python commands. I like it to do all of these things for me. Now, something that I never add to this list is I never add the rm, the remove command, because I always want to approve before it deletes any files. And so it's one of my recommendations that I have here. And the other thing is never just to give it bash star, because this means that it can run any command without asking for your approval. So you want to be explicit, calling out different commands or groups of commands that you want it to run versus just letting it run everything. That is way too dangerous. And if you really do want to do that, then you can run in Yolo mode in a dev container, which I'll cover later on in this guide here. So that's everything for permissions. It's really nice to have this set up right out the gate so that it can operate more autonomously and you don't have to babysit it as much. And so with that, we can move on to mastering custom slash commands. This is where we can build our own agentic workflows just as simple prompts for Claude Code. And all you have to do to create a slash command is within your .claude folder, you have to create another folder called commands. And then you can create a slash command as a markdown file. So I'll call this primer.md. This is one of the examples that I'll pull from our template in a second here. And so this is where we create a set of instructions that we can reuse basically as an advanced prompt for Claude Code. You can get very elaborate with these. Like I said, building entire agentic workflows, guiding Claude Code through a multi-step process. So I'm going to keep it simple right now, but just know that you can take these really, really far. And so the example I'm going to use here is priming context for Claude Code. So it's a set of instructions, a set of steps that I'm telling Claude Code to take in order to get it up to speed with a current code base that I'm operating on. So it's a really powerful command to run for Claude Code when you're working with an existing code base, but you're starting a brand new conversation. So you're coming in fresh with Claude Code. You want it to catch itself up on the code base before implementing a new feature. And so it basically is just a prompt that we have here, which, by the way, for other AI coding assistants like Cursor and Kiro that don't have these slash commands, you can literally just use this as a prompt. And so the nice part about having this as a slash command, though, is that it's just very reusable. Like instead of us having to copy and paste this or type this out in Claude Code, we can just do the slash command. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And it's also just very easy to share prompts with your teammates when you can just send them these commands that they can run with a single line. So this primer right here, now what we need to do to run it is I'm going to go back into Claude Code. I'm going to exit out of Claude Code and start a brand new session so we load in all the new commands that we've added in our .claude folder, and then we can do /primer. And so I'll go ahead and run this, and it's going to start following all of the commands that we have listed out here. So we'll start by using the tree command. We'll see it do that, and then it'll read the claude.md and the readme. So it's going to do those one at a time. There we go. So it ran the tree. We'll see it read the claude.md next. There we go. All right, so you get the idea with this. So we're priming our context here. And so going back to the readme, the last thing that I want to cover for these slash commands is you can also have parameters with these slash commands, with arguments. So when you have a slash command like this, where you have this $arguments keyword, that means that whenever you invoke this command, like /analyze performance, and you pass in another parameter after a space here, that is going to fill in what you have for the $arguments here. So you're going to replace this keyword with whatever you type out here. So you can parameterize these slash commands, which is another really nice thing to just make these commands more convenient for you. And so with other AI coding assistants, you can just like tell it to look at this command, use it as its prompt, and then like for the parameter, I want you to use this value. So you can still do this with other coding assistants, but slash commands just make it so easy with Claude Code. Next up, I want to talk about MCP servers. As awesome as Claude Code is, there's still a lot of opportunities to enhance it with external tools, and MCP is our way to connect Claude Code to those. And so I've covered MCP a lot on my channel before, even how to use it with Claude Code. But I've got some simple instructions here for how you can manage MCP servers and add them. I've talked about others on my channel before, like my crawl for AI reg or like Supabase or Neon, so you can manage your database within Claude Code. One that I really want to focus on here, though, that's made a huge difference for me, is the Serena MCP server. This one's incredible. I just found out about this last week, and it is already doing a lot of good work for me. So this MCP server, it does a lot of the things that Claude Code does to understand your code base and search through it and find the files to edit for changes that you ask for, except it does it better. It is an MCP server that's all about semantic retrieval and editing your code. So it's a very coding heavy MCP server. It's a game changer. And so we can add this into Claude Code to enhance its understanding of our code base. So it's a wonderful MCP to work with existing code bases, which I know is something that a lot of you have been asking me to cover more on my channel. And so make sure you have UVX installed. This is how you can install it in WSL. And then we can add Serena just with this command. So I'll go into my terminal here. I'm not in the Claude CLI. I'm exited out of it right now. And so I can add the MCP server. There we go. We've added Serena. And then I can do Claude MCP list. And this is going to tell me the MCP servers I have connected. And it's going to verify the connection like we have with Archon. I'll talk about that in a sec. And then also Serena. And we could also do Claude MCP remove Serena. If we want to remove that connection, obviously we don't want to do that right now. And so the other thing that we can do in order for Claude Code to be able to run Serena without asking us for permission is we can add it to our settings here. So I can say MCP __ Serena. That is the specific syntax to allow automatically access to all of the tools here. And so it's MCP __ and then the name of your MCP server. Like I can also do MCP Archon. There we go. So now it's able to use all the tools from these MCP servers without asking for my permission, which I generally prefer, and I'd recommend doing the same. And then the other thing that we can do, I'm going to give you a live example of Serena here. I edited my primer.md, this slash command, to specify I wanted you to use Serena to search through the code base, and then just keep trying to use Serena if you get any errors, because that happens sometimes. But yeah, we're going to change the behavior of our slash command leveraging this new MCP server. And just to give you a more complete example, what I'm going to do here is add some stuff into the code base. So I'm just going to take this here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to take what I have for the Pydantic AI PRP template I covered recently on my channel. I'm just going to add this as content to our repo here. So we have something for it to search through with Serena. So, okay, we got a more complete code base here. Now I can go back into Claude and I can run that primer command again, but this time it's going to behave a lot differently. There we go. I'll send off the primer and it's going to start by using the tree command just like before. It'll read the claude.md and the readme, but then in a second here, and I'll skip down to this for you. Okay, actually, there we go. It's already starting to use Serena. And so we'll see it leverage different tools within the Serena MCP to really understand my code base. Take a look at this, all these different calls to Serena, and I had to approve none of them because I already added them into my settings.local.json for the Serena MCP. And so I'm not going to go through and like show the full output of this command here, but yeah, it's just going to have a much better understanding of our code base, especially as our code base gets larger. That's when Claude Code can start to fall on its face, and you want to have tools like Serena. And then the last thing for MCP is me and a few other guys in the Dynamous community are working on a massive overhaul for Archon. We're going to be making it the MCP server for AI coding assistants, and I cannot wait for this. It is going to be the knowledge and task management backbone for all AI coding assistants. And this Wednesday, the 13th, my next video at 7 p.m. Central Time, it's going to be our official open source beta launch of this new version of Archon. And as another celebration, we have a launch party. I'm going to be doing a live stream on Saturday, the 16th at 9 a.m. Central Time. So definitely mark your calendars for that. This is going to be a huge celebration for Archon, which has an incredible user interface now. You can manage tasks for your coding projects with your code coding assistant in real time. So as it updates things through the MCP server, and as you're updating things, you're communicating back and forth in real time. We've got knowledge as well, so you can crawl documentation, kind of like my crawl for AI rag MCP, and we have all those different strategies that I've been working on. We've been pouring our heart and soul into Archon, so this is just giving you a little bit of a teaser right now. So much more coming for this very, very soon. The next strategy that I want to dive into with you is context engineering with the PRP framework, and I've covered this a lot on my channel recently, so I'll link to a video right here if you want to really dive into this, because it really does deserve its own video, like a lot of the things that I'm covering here. So by the way, if you want to see more of one of these strategies in a complete video, definitely let me know in the comments. But context engineering with the PRP framework, it's a 3-step process for us to define exactly the feature or new project we want to create. We generate a comprehensive document for context for our coding assistant, and then we execute it. And we have instructions as slash commands to take care of the last 2 steps for us. And so I'll just walk you through this process really quick. Definitely check out that other video if you really want to dive into this more. And so within the PRPs folder, this is always where we define our initial.md. This is where we outline what we want to build, any kind of examples that we want to give it or documentation, any other kinds of considerations that we have for it. And so I'm taking the template that I have for you that I made earlier on my channel with building Pydantic AI agents specifically. So I'm just using this as a simple example here. So you describe your feature, which in my case, to keep it really simple, I'm just going to use the default that I have here. So I'm going to build a simple research agent using Pydantic AI. And then a lot of times it's helpful to describe the tools, dependencies, and system prompts that you want for your agent. I'm just going to delete this to make it really simple and fast for our purposes here. You want to provide any examples that you have, like for the Pydantic AI use case that I gave for you guys, I have examples already in here for different agents built with Pydantic AI. So I'm referencing all of these here so that when we generate our PRP, that's that longer form prompt that has all the context for the coding assistant, it's going to have all these examples within it. So it'll reference those things, bring it into context so it has those examples to build off of. And then same kind of thing with documentation. So referencing things from the Pydantic AI documentation directly so it reads those pages. So we're telling it explicitly where to go look to get all the information that it needs. And then just any other kinds of considerations that we have here. Some things that I see it messing up on a lot, like how it manages environment variables. So I'm just calling it out right here. So you create your initial.md. And then going back to the README, the next step after that is we need to generate our PRP. So I'll go back into Claude Code here, and I'm going to clear the conversation because we're going to just start from fresh here. And I'll just say /generate Pydantic AI PRP, or whatever your slash command is called to generate your product requirement prompt. And then we just give it the path to our initial.md. And so I'll kick this off. It's going to take a little bit, so I'll pause and come back once it is done. But all this is going to do is go through my initial.md, do any of the research that it has to do to grab all that context, form that super long prompt that we're then going to execute in our last step. And take a look at this. It's even using Archon under the hood. I didn't even tell it to, but we have the MCP server connected, so it's using that for rag searching and looking at our code examples here. So you're getting a little bit of a taste of how Archon works. You'll see this a lot more in the beta release next week. But yeah, basically what we're doing here when we're generating a PRP is we're basing everything off of this base PRP. This is the template that we're using to create this large prompt that we're going to execute in the next step to generate all of our code. And so we cover core principles for Pydantic AI, what to do and not to do. So I've crafted this base PRP very specific to building AI agents with Pydantic AI, covering all the context we need. Something else I really like about PRP is we cover the different tasks, like here's what you should do step by step to build an agent with Pydantic AI. And then we get into validation loops, aka validation gates, so telling the AI coding assistant how it can validate itself to make sure that its output is good according to like what we care about for AI agents. It's really, really nice. The final checklist, some anti-patterns. That's basically what we're going to have it create here, but specific to the agent that we want to create from our initial.md. And there we go. Our PRP is generated. And you always want to validate your PRPs before you execute them. Make sure that it complied with the base PRP, that everything's filled into your specifications, that everything looks good. Like if you gave this to another engineer, they could go ahead and use this to implement the agent end-to-end exactly as you want. That's the goal that we have with such an extensive prompt. as a PRP. And so yeah, this looks perfect to me. So now I can go ahead and execute this. And so I'll go back into Claude Code. You generally want to clear the conversation with /clear. We want to start with fresh context here because the PRP has everything that it needs. And so now we can do the other command. Instead of generate, it is execute PRP. And so then we'll just give it the path here to the Brave research agent.md. There we go. So now we're kicking this off. It's going to build the full agent for us. So it'll read the PRP first because that's the argument that we're giving the / command. We talked about arguments with / commands earlier. And then it's going to go through and it's going to read anything else that we have in our structure here, including all the examples that we told it to. It's going to do web research on the documentation. It's even using Serena. Take a look at this. So it's using Serena to understand our code structure. It's going to be using Archon for RAG as well. There's so much happening under the hood. And so I'm going to pause and come back once we have our complete implementation. And there we go. After about 20 minutes, we have our AI agent. And just like with the PRP, I would very much encourage you to go through and validate the code that was outputted here. I did that off camera. I iterated twice just to clean up a couple of things. And now I can go ahead and run this agent and just show you really quickly that we have things working here. Just the power of context engineering. And it is a very, very basic agent just to give you a demonstration here. But it's a nice CLI that we have. We've got streaming. It has a tool for web search. So I can say, what is the net worth of Jeff Bezos in 2025, and it'll even show us that it's using the web search tool. We've got the text streaming and the conversation history. It's a pretty nice agent that we have built here in a single shot thanks to PRP, thanks to the examples that we referenced in the documentation in our initial.md. So just showing you at a high level what it looks like to do context engineering with the PRP framework. And so with that, I want to move on to the next step that I have for you here, which is making our coding process even more powerful with PRP, really with anything. And it's thanks to having a specialized intelligence in our coding workflows thanks to Claude Code subagents. So with subagents, our primary Claude Code agent is given the ability to call upon any of them, and the primary agent is the one that actually prompts the subagent. So very important to understand how that works. The subagent has its own context window. So we're not bringing in the entire conversation history into each subagent. We're only including a prompt for our subagent that is crafted by our primary one based on how it knows how to use that subagent. We'll see what that looks like in a little bit. And subagents are very powerful because they each have a specialized system prompt. We can limit the tools that they have access to, and they work autonomously on delegated tasks. Our primary agent can also kick off many subagents in parallel. So it's another very easy way to add parallel agent execution into our coding workflows. And all of our agents, they live in the .claude folder in a new folder that we'll create here called agents. And there are two ways that we can create our agents, just like with our global rules. There is a /agents command. It's kind of like /init, where Claude Code will actually walk us through creating our agents. So it'll output a file kind of like this. Or we can just build these files ourselves. And there's a couple of templates that I have available for you here. So feel free to grab these from the agents folder in the GitHub repo linked below. One of them that I want to show you right here, just to quickly show you the power of subagents, is one that Rasmus, the creator of the PRP framework, he actually built this for validation gates. So validation gates is a very important part of the PRP framework because at the end, once we have executed the PRP and we have our code outputted, we want our agent to operate autonomously, writing tests, iterating on those tests until it's confident that the code is working. And so we can build a specialized agent to handle that. And so I'm going to make a new file in the agents folder. I'll call it validationgates.md. So these are markdown files, just like our global rules, just like the hooks we'll get into in a little bit. And we have a unique system prompt here telling it exactly how to implement and validate our validation gates. And so at the top, we have the name of our agent. Then we have a description. The description is really important because this is what tells our primary Claude Code agent, here's what this subagent's all about, and also how you can invoke it. So really telling when and how to use this subagent. And then we can also describe the tools that it has access to. There's other parameters as well, like we can even specify the model. Like if we want to use Sonnet 4 or Opus 4, we can specify that for the subagent. So this is our agent. Now going back to the README here, I just want to say that while other AI coding assistants don't have the formal idea of subagents built into their platform, like Cursor or Kiro or Klein or whatever, you can achieve something very similar just with prompts. And really, just like our global rules, just like our / commands, all of these subagents are really just prompts. And so you could just have a folder that's filled with all these different prompts, and you could have your global rules say like, okay, when you get to this point in the development flow, use this prompt to perform validation gates or to update the documentation, whatever that might be. So you can achieve something very similar. It's just so easy the way that we can implement agents with Claude Code, being able to have things like descriptions and tools and specifying different models. It's a lot more flexible than if we just have to do it with only prompts. And so there's still a reason to do this, but yeah, let me go ahead and show you a demo of this. So within a new Claude Code session, you have to refresh your session to bring in new agents just like new slash commands. I'm saying, here's my validation gate. I want you to make sure that all the tests for the Brave research agent are working. And I'm not being explicit for it to use the subagent. I mean, I'm being kind of explicit saying validation gate here, but this is just to simulate more what it would look like when we're operating in the middle of a PRP, because that is a keyword that we use, validation gate. And there we go. It's now calling upon our specialized subagent, and our subagent is making this task list. It's handling everything in a separate conversation window. Then it's going to pass control with an output back to our primary agent that will continue the flow or give the final response to us. And so we don't have to see this whole process right now. I just want to demonstrate really quickly how the primary agent is going to intelligently figure out when to call upon subagents based on the description that we have here. Next up, we have Claude hooks, which is a very powerful way to add deterministic control to Claude Code's behavior. So we have all these keywords here. After any of these actions, we can invoke our own custom command. And so before we use a tool, after we use a tool, after we use a subagent, we can have our own custom command that runs. It's really powerful. And this is built into Hero as well, but it's not in other AI coding assistants. I definitely think though, because Claude Code is the industry leader and you always copy the industry leader, we're going to see these other IDEs like Cursor, Windsurf, and Augment Code implement hooks as well. It's really, really powerful. And so yeah, all you have to do to add hooks here is you have to define them in JSON and then add them to our settings.local.json. So I usually like organizing them in a hooks folder. And then I just have a JSON file here. I can just call this whatever I want, hooks.json. And then I have a couple of hooks in the template for you just to introduce yourself. These are really, really basic hooks, but just to introduce yourself to the different kind of hooks you can add and also different points in the development lifecycle that you can have these actions take place. So I'm going to copy this, bring it into here, and then just keep it really simple right now. I'm going to bring it down to a single hook, which I'll then copy this JSON and put it in my settings below everything that I have for permissions that we already covered. So there we go. I now have this command that runs. It's going to run this bash script every single time that we finish invoking one of these tools. So we're using this matcher to also kind of filter down after our tool use. And so within the hooks folder, I'm just going to create this file as well because I'm calling out the path in the command there. So log tool usage.sh. And then I'll just go ahead and copy the contents from the template. So there we go. It's really simple. You can also get parameters from your hook, so I could do things like log the specific tools that are used here. But yeah, keeping it really simple, it says Claude made an edit with a timestamp every single time. So it's going to call that now as long as we refresh our Claude session. So I'm going to clear, start a new session with Claude, and ask it to make a change. So a little silly here, but I'm asking it to make just some random change to my .gitignore. I don't really care what it does here. I just want to see that when I make a change, it is going to call my hook. And then we'll see something get outputted to a new logs folder that will be created in our .claude because that is where we're pointing to in our script. So I'll let it make the change to my .gitignore here. There we go. And then just in a second, boom. All right, we got our logs folder. We have our .log file. Claude made an edit just a second ago. Looking really good. So that's hooks at a basic level. There's a lot that you can do with them. It honestly would deserve its own video. So yeah, certainly let me know in the comments if you're curious on having a video diving into hooks or something like subagents as well. Next up, I want to dive into the GitHub CLI, using that with Claude Code. As much as Claude Code is useful operating in our local development environment, it's also extremely powerful when you can have it operating within your GitHub repository. So you can have it manage issues and pull requests. That's what I want to show you right now. And so you can install the GitHub CLI just by following this link. And then there's a couple of commands that you need to run here. So first of all, just authenticating with GitHub, and this will walk you through the OAuth flow. And then outside of Claude here, so I'm going to clear this, you can just do gh repo list just to make sure that it's working for you. So this will list all of your GitHub repositories. So at this point, you're signed into Claude, and now that you have gh in your development environment, you have the GitHub CLI command, Claude Code can start using this to operate on your remote GitHub repository. It's so powerful. And so like, for example, what I can do here in my GitHub repo, so everything that we've been building together in this video, I have in this private GitHub repo. I can go ahead and create an issue right now. And so I'll open up an issue here. I'll say, greeting for the brave agent. And I can say, this is just kind of for demonstration purposes here, but I can say, my brave agent needs to have a greeting when I first start the CLI. So just something kind of silly here, but I'll create this issue. There we go. And then the issue is number 1. You can see that here and then also in the URL. And this will be important in a little bit because we're going to call out this issue to Claude Code and have it fix it for us. And in order for it to do that, I'm going to create a custom / command. So I have this one also available in the template for you. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go into my .claude and my commands, new file, fix GitHub issue.md, not sh, that's hooks. There we go. All right, so I'll paste this in. And basically what we're doing is walking it through. When I give you an issue, and this is the argument that we're passing here, it's going to be the issue number. Like in our case, it's just issue number 1. It's going to use the GitHub CLI, gh issue view, to understand the issue. It's going to look through our code base, implement a fix. It's going to write tests and validate things, which that might even call upon our validation gates subagent. We'll see. It's going to ensure everything is good to go, and then it'll also create a pull request. So it's going to push things to GitHub, maybe in like a new branch it creates or whatever, and then it'll also create a pull request. So it's end to end. It goes out to GitHub, does things locally, and then goes back out to GitHub with a PR. So cool. So I'm going to go back into Claude. I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to execute this command. So it's just simply /fix GitHub issue, and then my issue number is 1. So I'll go ahead and send this in. In a second, it's going to pull this comment right here, and it's going to use that to guide its development. Yep, so we got the issue right here, greetings for the brave agent, and the text is cut off, but it got the full text here. Now it's creating a to-do list to fix everything, and then it'll create a PR at the end. So I'll pause and come back once it is done with this flow. And there we go. Let me full screen this for you here. The full summary. It found the issue after reading it from GitHub, implemented the fix, tested everything, made a new branch, pushed it, and created a pull request, all from a single / command. That's the power of / commands with this full agentic workflow that we created. That's the power of the integration with the GitHub CLI. So going back to my issue here, we can see that we have a commit and a new branch referencing this issue, and we have a new pull request. So if I refresh here, we'll see a 1 next to pull request. There we go. I can go in here. We can take a look at the changes that were made. So yeah, it made some tests, and then it also updated CLI just to add a nice greeting here. This is looking so good. So I can go ahead and review these changes. I can merge them into my main branch. I can even have Claude help me do all of that. It's just beautiful, the integrations that we have here. And of course, there's a lot more you can do with the GitHub CLI with Claude Code. You can even have Claude Code integrated directly with your GitHub repo, so you can reference it within your issues and PRs just like a normal developer and have it fix things and create PRs autonomously. Really cool. So we're just scratching the surface here, but I just wanted to introduce you to what is possible with these kind of integrations. Next up, let's go on to the Yolo mode with Devcontainers, because at this point, we've already covered permissions. We have everything set up in our settings.local.json. We understand what it looks like to have things in place where Claude will do certain actions autonomously without our approval, and then other things like removing files, we generally always want to approve it before it does so. And one of the biggest reasons that we want to have these kind of protections in place for commands like removing files is because Claude Code can theoretically remove things outside of our current project. It could delete really critical files on our computer, worst case scenario. Now, I haven't seen that happen, but these are the kind of protections that we want to have in place in general when we're running Claude Code directly on our computer. And so the solution for this, if you want to have a safe environment, but also have Claude never have to ask you for permission to do things, so it can go and operate entirely autonomously, that's when we want to enable Yolo mode with Devcontainers. And so basically with dev containers, we run Claude Code in its own isolated environment. So our entire machine is protected. We can also have firewalls set up in place for the dev container so it only has access to the websites we want it to. And so then we can run it with dangerously skip permissions, where it will now no longer ever ask us for approval for anything, and we can still be safe. And dev containers is an official idea from Anthropic. So they have this page in their docs, which I'll link to in the description below. You can read through this if you want to understand what they're setting up for us here. And they give us the Docker file and a couple of other things so we can create this dev container. And we can run these directly in any VS Code. So you can also do forks like Cursor and Windsurf. We can run it with Claude Code, just open up in any VS Code. So yeah, I'll show you how to do this right now. And I have this .dev container that's included from Anthropic. I have this directly in the template for you. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back to the two folders here. I'm going to copy this dev container and I'm going to bring it right into the code base that we've been working on in this video. So there's our dev container, and then going back to our README here, the way that we run this is in VS Code, we just have to press F1. We have to select dev container, and I'll say reopen in container. And this is going to automatically build up our dev container, open up a new VS Code environment. I'm just using Windsurf right here to run Claude Code in the terminal. So it's going to be building the dev container, and then after a little bit, we'll have a new environment spun up operating entirely inside the container. So I'll pause and come back once that is ready. So there we go. And then the way that you know that you're in the dev container is just in the bottom left. It'll say that you're in the container, the dev container. We can go back to reopen folder locally. If you want to exit out of the container, go back to your normal development environment. And so now if I do Control J to open up a terminal here and I do Claude, this is going to open up a brand new Claude Code session. And because I am in an isolated environment, basically a new virtual machine, it's walking me through the process to set up Claude Code from scratch. And this makes sense. So I'll just go through the authentication flow right here. There we go. So I just opened the link to authenticate with Claude Code, went through the last couple of steps here, and now we are within Claude. And what I can do, by the way, if I clear this and I open Claude again, this is where I can run the -- dangerously skip permissions. And so we'll see in the bottom right here. So let me enter. So yeah, it's giving me a warning here. You are in bypass permission mode. So I accept this, and we'll see this in the bottom right that we are bypassing permissions. So now whenever I do something like write more tests, whatever it is, like it's not going to ask me for approval before I edit anything. Even if it removes files, it won't ask for approval there either. It's going to do everything entirely autonomously, but also we have protections in place. Like there's some firewall stuff that Anthropic built into this container. We have an allow list of websites that we can visit, so you can add on to that list as well. Definitely poke around with this if you're interested in setting up this safe Yolo Mode dev container environment. And it's all thanks to this Docker file. So all this is coming directly from the Anthropic documentation. We now have our safe Yolo Mode. Last but not least, I want to cover parallel agent execution with you in Claude Code. And we're going to do this with the idea of Git work trees. And there are a couple of different ways to implement parallel agents. And we saw one way with Subagents already. But this one's really powerful because with Git work trees, basically, it's our way to have different branches for our GitHub repository open at the same time. And we'll have an instance of Claude Code operating on each of them. So we're guaranteed isolation. They're not going to be tripping over each other's toes because they all have their own branch open up. So we have the code base duplicated across these different work trees. And then basically after we implement whatever changes we want in each work tree, we can find the one that we want to merge in, or maybe we want to merge in all of them, and we can just bring them back into our main branch after each Claude Code instance is done. And so there's a manual way to set this up. And then there's an automated way that's really cool with slash commands that I want to focus on with you here. But let's start with the manual way really quick. So I'm not going to run through all these commands as a demo right now. I just want to call these out really quick. Basically, once you have your different feature branches created, like feature/auth, feature/API, you can now add work trees. And so you just call out the branch that the work tree is going to be based off of, and then you give a path to your local file system where you want to basically replicate the code base into the work tree. So it actually duplicates everything, so you have a completely isolated environment in a separate branch. And then you can just change into that directory and launch Claude. And so you can do this in any number of work trees that you create. It's really, really easy. But it is pretty tedious for you to create all these branches, set up all these work trees, and then open up Claude in every single one of them. And so I have an automated process for you that takes care of all of this. This is what I really want to demo for you right here. And so there are a couple of slash commands that I have in the template for you, going along with all the other ones that we've covered, like the primer and the PRP stuff, that I want to bring in right now. So the first one is prep parallel. So I'm going to copy this. I'll bring it into our commands and I'll explain it really quickly. So prep parallel.md, as in prepping the parallel execution of many different agents here. So we have a couple of arguments. We have the feature name. What is the name of this new feature that we want to implement? And then what are the number of parallel agents or parallel work trees that we want to have? And then just in a loop here, based on the number of parallel agents, it's going to create a new branch and a new Git work tree. It's going to change into there, and it's going to just validate that everything is set up properly. And then we'll run the Git work tree list at the end to make sure that we have everything set up. So we're prepping for the execution of many different Claude agents here. And for this example, what I have right here with parallel execution, this is specifically for having many different agents tackling the same feature in a code base. And so I also want to be clear here. Let me scroll back down. I also want to be clear here that you can use parallel agents to work on different parts of your code base at the same time. Or like what we're doing here, we can use parallel agents to implement the same feature many different times so we can pick the best implementation. It's just a faster way to develop, because sometimes Claude messes up and you have to restart, but now we can just do all of that at once. And so that is our prep parallel. The next one that we have, it's kind of like PRP, where we have a prep command and then we have the actual execute command. So execute parallel. So I'll bring this in. I'll make a new file, execute parallel.md. Let me fix the spelling there, rename. Typos are not good. All right, so there we go. Paste in the full contents here. So we have the feature name as one argument. We have the plan to execute. So this is just like our initial.md with PRP, where we will create, and I'll actually do this here. We'll have a plan.md, and this is where we'll specify everything that we want to implement for our new feature. And so I can just say something like, change the Brave Agent CLI to have red and orange colors for the primary theme. Just something very simple for a demo, just like we did with Subagents. And so going back here to the command, we have our plan to execute. So we'll pass in the path to plan.md as this argument within the slash command. And then we have the number of parallel work trees. And this should just be the same number that we passed into prep parallel. And so now for the instructions here, we're just telling it, like, you're going to create n number of Claude Code agents that are going to operate implementing the same feature. So we're just describing, like, read the plan, and then here's how you set up the different work trees and executing the different Claude Code agents, and then each of them make sure that they report their final changes in a comprehensive results.md so that we can go into each work tree after, see what was implemented, we can test each one out, find the one that we like the most, and then we can bring that one into our main branch. So that's the flow that we're going to go through right now. And so starting out, I'm going to go into my Claude here. I'm going to open up a brand new Claude session because I just created these slash commands. And so my command is going to be slash prep parallel, and then I need the feature name as the first argument, so that is CLI UI updates, and then 3 for the number of parallel work trees. And so I'm going to send this off. It's going to go through the set of instructions, and so I'll pause and come back once this is done. All right, so we've created each of the work trees and verified everything. And we can even see this here. If we go into this new trees folder, we have our code base replicated in each of these. This is exactly how work trees are supposed to operate. So we are now ready to execute our parallel process. So I'll go over to the execute parallel here. We got our 3 arguments. And so here's what I'll do. I'm going to actually clear the conversation here because we don't even need the context of prepping things. We can just dive right into the execution with no context. And so our command is going to be execute parallel, and then the same feature name. Might as well just call it the same name, CLI UI updates. Then we reference our plan.md because that's where we're going to understand the feature we want to implement. And typically you'll have quite a bit more detail here. I'm just keeping this very basic for demo purposes, but this should be pretty fleshed out, just like your initial.mds. And then going to execute parallel, and then we're just doing 3 for our number of parallel work trees. And by the way, if you wanted to really take this far, you could combine this whole parallel execution with the PRP framework. Now that would be really cool, something that I definitely want to play around with in the near future here. But yeah, I'll go ahead and send this off. It's going to read the plan. It's going to dish that out to 3 different Claude Code subagents running at the same time, implementing the same feature, and then I get to pick the best one at the end. And by the way, when I say that we have parallel execution here, I do do mean that they are all running at the exact same time. We can see that here because we have the blinking light in 3 spots here. We have a task for each of our subagents, version 1, 2, and 3 of the CLI colors implementation. Oh, and look, I think one of them already completed its first task here. So we're getting through the implementation. They're running at their own speeds, all in isolation. And so yeah, I'll come back once we are done with all 3. And there we go, we are done. And our primary agent even gives us a summary of what all the different subagents did in the work trees here. So we have slight different implementations for the CLI UI updates. And I'll actually show you what this looks like. So I took one of the subagents here, the first one, and I just set up that environment with UV and my .env just like I did with the original Brave search agent. And here's what our UI looks like. And honestly, I like the original one more. I mean, this was just a silly example here, but it very much did implement the red and the orange exactly like I told it to. And each of the other ones are going to look pretty much the same. And then I'm not going to show it here, but going back to the README really quickly, if I do want to pick one of these to bring back into my main branch, there's just a couple of commands that I need to run. So I can just do git checkout main, and then I can merge any one of these branches that our work tree is based off of back into my main branch, push it up to GitHub, and that's how easy it is to have parallel agent execution and then bring it back into our main branch. So there you go. That is everything that I have for you today on using Claude Code effectively, going from start to finish, all the different features that we have with Claude Code and how you can get the most out of them. And I'm going to be totally honest, this guide did end up being quite a bit longer than I thought it would be, but I didn't want to skip out on the details here. I wanted to cover all these things meticulously so you have just a super solid foundation and clear understanding of how we can get the most out of Claude Code with all the beautiful features for things like slash commands and subagents and hooks. And all these things really could deserve their own dedicated video. So I know that I mentioned this a couple of times throughout the video already, but definitely let me know in the comments if there's anything that I've covered here that you want me to expand upon a lot more. I do want to make quite a few more videos in the near future on Claude Code and just AI coding in general, because this is the future, and AI for coding is really one of the most exciting use cases of generative AI right now. So if you enjoy this video and you're looking forward to more things AI coding and AI agents, I would definitely appreciate a like and a subscribe. And with that, I will see you in the next video.